Emma's hands trembled as she checked her reflection in the car mirror one last time. After 3 years of loneliness following her divorce, she'd finally agreed to meet someone, a single father named Michael whom her best friend had been raving about for months. Her heart pounded with equal parts excitement and terror. This was supposed to be her fresh start, her chance to believe in love again. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The coffee shop was just 2 blocks away when Emma heard it, a desperate, high-pitched cry that pierced through the steady afternoon drizzle. She slowed her car, scanning the area, and that's when she saw him, a little boy, no more than 6 years old, standing at the edge of a construction site, tears streaming down his face as he pointed frantically toward a drainage ditch filled with muddy water. "My dog. Please, my dog fell in. He can't swim." The boy screamed at passing pedestrians who barely glanced his way, too absorbed in their phones and umbrellas to notice a child's breaking heart. Emma glanced at the clock on her dashboard. She had exactly 7 minutes to get to the coffee shop. 7 minutes to make a first impression on a man who might be her second chance at happiness. She looked down at her outfit, a cream-colored dress she'd bought specifically for this occasion, her hair carefully styled, makeup applied with painstaking precision. Then she looked back at the boy, whose small body shook with sobs. There was no decision to make, not really. Emma jerked her car to the curb, kicked off her heels, and ran toward the child. "Where?" she gasped, reaching him in seconds. "There. That's Charlie." He pointed to where a small golden retriever puppy struggled against the current of rainwater rushing through the ditch, his tiny head barely above the surface. Without a moment's hesitation, Emma slid down the muddy embankment. The cold, filthy water soaked through her dress immediately as she waded waist-deep into the drainage ditch. Her feet sank into the muck below, and she felt something slimy brush against her leg, but she pushed forward. The puppy was being pulled toward a culvert pipe. If he went in there, he'd be gone. "It's okay, baby, I've got you," Emma murmured, stretching her arms out as far as they could go. Her fingers grazed wet fur, lost it, then caught hold. She pulled the trembling puppy against her chest and turned back toward the embankment, her dress now completely ruined, brown water dripping from her hair, mud caked across her face and arms. The little boy was crying with relief as she handed him his dog. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," he sobbed, clutching the puppy who immediately began licking his face. "Is he okay? Are you okay?" Emma asked, catching her breath. "I'm fine, but my dad is gonna be so mad I let Charlie off his leash. We were supposed to meet his friend for coffee, but Charlie saw a squirrel and..." Emma's phone buzzed in her purse, which thankfully she'd left on solid ground. She crawled up the muddy slope and checked the screen. 3 missed calls from Michael. Her heart sank. She was now 15 minutes late, covered head to toe in mud, and smelled like a swamp. She quickly typed out a message with muddy fingers. "I'm so sorry. There was an emergency. I'm still coming, but I need you to prepare yourself. It's complicated." His response came quickly. "The coffee shop on Maple Street. I'm here. Whatever happened, just come." Emma looked down at herself. This was absurd. She should go home, reschedule, try to salvage some dignity. But something in his message, the simple acceptance, the lack of questions or judgment, made her decide to go anyway. If he couldn't handle seeing her at her absolute worst, what was the point? She grabbed her purse, told the little boy to get inside somewhere dry and call his parents, then drove the 2 blocks to the coffee shop, leaving muddy footprints and puddles in her wake. When Emma pushed open the door, every head in the coffee shop turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A barista's mouth fell open. She stood there, dripping mud onto the welcome mat, looking like she'd been dredged from a river, scanning the room for Michael, a man she'd only seen in a single photo. That's when she saw him. A tall man with kind eyes and dark hair shot up from a corner table, his face shifting from confusion to concern in an instant. But before Emma could say a word, the little boy from the construction site came barreling through the door behind her. "Dad, Dad, this is the lady who saved Charlie." Emma's mud-covered face went pale beneath the grime. The man was Michael. The boy was his son. For a moment, the entire coffee shop held its breath. Michael stood frozen, his eyes moving from his son to the bedraggled woman before him, to the muddy puppy in his son's arms, and back again. Emma wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Then Michael's face broke into the warmest smile she'd ever seen. He walked straight toward her, not caring about the mud, and his eyes shimmered with something that looked like wonder. "You saved my son's dog," he said softly. "I'm so sorry I'm late." Emma started, but her voice cracked. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by embarrassment and exhaustion. This is the worst first impression in the history of first impressions. Michael shook his head slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Are you kidding me? Emma, I've been on 17 first dates in the past year. 17 women who showed up looking perfect, saying all the right things, checking their phones while I talked about my son, making it clear that being a single dad was a complication they'd tolerate at best." He glanced back at his son, who was drying Charlie with napkins a sympathetic barista had provided. "But you," Michael continued, turning back to Emma. "You showed up covered in mud because you put a child's heartbreak and a puppy's life before your own comfort, before making a good impression, before everything. You didn't know that boy was my son. You just saw someone who needed help, and you helped. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How beautiful that is?" Tears mixed with the muddy water on Emma's face. "I'm dripping all over their floor." Michael laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that made his son look up and grin. "Jake," he called to his son, "what do you think? Should we invite the lady who saved Charlie to have hot chocolate with us? Maybe somewhere that has towels." "Yes." Jake jumped up. "Please, Miss Emma. You have too. You're like a superhero." Emma let out a laugh that was half sob. "I'm really not. I'm just a woman who's having the strangest day of her entire life." "Well," Michael said, gently touching her elbow with the very tips of his fingers, the only part of her that wasn't mud-caked, "I happen to have a change of clothes in my car, gym stuff, but it's clean. There's a restroom here where you could wash up a bit. Then maybe we could start this date over. If you're willing to give a chaotic single dad and his escape artist puppy a chance." Emma looked at this man who saw her at her absolute worst and somehow made her feel like she was at her best. She looked at his son, who was gazing at her like she'd hung the moon, and at the little puppy who'd accidentally orchestrated the most unconventional meet-cute in history. "I would really like that," she whispered. 20 minutes later, Emma emerged from the restroom wearing Michael's oversized gym shirt and sweatpants, her hair damp but clean. Her face scrubbed of mud and makeup both. She felt more vulnerable without her carefully constructed armor than she had covered in mud, but when Michael saw her, his smile somehow grew even wider. They talked for 3 hours. Michael told her about losing his wife to cancer 2 years ago, about the terrifying joy of raising Jake alone, about his fears and hopes. Emma shared her own story of divorce, of rebuilding herself piece by piece, of being afraid to trust again. Jake chimed in with commentary about school and Charlie's various adventures, and the puppy snoozed contentedly on Emma's lap, leaving small muddy paw prints on Michael's gym pants that none of them cared about. As the coffee shop prepared to close and the sky outside darkened, Michael walked Emma to her car. "I know this is probably too soon to say," he began, "but I feel like I've been waiting to meet you my whole life. Not the perfect dress, perfect makeup version, though I'm sure that Emma is lovely too. But this Emma. The one who jumps into ditches for strangers, who shows up anyway even when everything goes wrong, who laughs at herself and cares more about a child's tears than her own appearance." Emma felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been locked tight for 3 long years. "I was so scared to come today," she admitted. "Scared of being hurt again, of not being enough, of trying and failing." "We're all scared," Michael said gently. "But you know what I learned today? The best things in life happen when we choose love over fear, action over comfort, connection over self-protection. You did that today. You didn't even know you were doing it, which makes it even more beautiful." 6 months later, Emma would stand in Michael's backyard at Jake's 7th birthday party, laughing as Charlie, now significantly larger and better trained, splashed through a kiddie pool. Michael would wrap his arms around her from behind and whisper, "Thank you for showing up covered in mud that day. Thank you for always showing up, exactly as you are." And Emma would realize that sometimes the worst moments become the best memories, that dignity is overrated compared to kindness, and that love, real, lasting, transformative love, doesn't care about perfect first impressions. It only cares about perfect hearts, willing to get a little muddy for the sake of someone else's joy. The photograph from that first day, Jake's candid shot of Emma covered in mud, holding Charlie, with Michael's hand reaching toward her, would become their favorite picture, framed on the mantel is a reminder that the most beautiful beginnings often look nothing like we imagined, and that's exactly what makes them perfect.